Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. We're on, as Christoph has told you numerous times, we're on a tight schedule, so this one will be 10 minutes, and that's including questions. And then we will move on. So, for this presentation, it's Matilda Gradin at the Trelleborg municipality, and she's going to talk about nutrient recycling in agricultural landscapes via production, wetlands, algae, and biogas. So, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so what we are doing in Trelleborg municipality is that we are trying to recycle the nutrients from the sea back to the farmland, because we can see the consequences of eutrophication very clearly in our commune. The picture up there in the corner is from the beaches during the summer, so it's not uncommon that it looks like that. It's virtually impossible to go swimming. So we put a lot of effort into cleaning the beaches, and that's done in most coastal municipalities around the Baltic Sea. And most of these algae that are collected is thrown back into the ocean after the beach season. So that's the normal way to handle it, because actually it's difficult to take care of the algae. It's not allowed to put it on landfill, since it's an organic matter. And so it's collected and put into piles during bathing season. Then it's spread out on the beach after the summer, and the sea takes it back. And this algae contains phosphorus and nitrogen that is already collected and up there on the beaches. In Trelleborg, if you look at the last year, 2014, we collected only for the beach recreational purposes about 2,000 tons of algae. And that contains about 800 kilos of phosphorus and 14 tons of nitrogen. And and parts of this we took up and used for biogas production. But the rest is taken back by the ocean after the season. And this is also a very old tradition, that you take the algae from the beaches and put it on the agricultural land as a manure. And it was stopped in the 50s when we got all these artificial nutrients instead. So what we are doing is, you can see on the picture there, this is one of the biogas plants. And algae is a bit complicated material to make biogas of, because it contains sand, and it's if you try to put it in a normal biogas reactor, which is a stirred reactor, you can get this kind of kebab-like way. So it needs to be chopped or something. But instead we have a two-step biogas process, so that we have a hydrolyzation in this chamber there. And then the water goes into the methane filter where the biogas is produced. So we don't have these problems with sand and so that you have in a traditional biogas process. And we also want, of course, we want to decrease the outflow of nutrients from the land also. And one way we do that is that we build production wetlands, because in Trelleborg municipality it's very intensely cultivated. And we need to of course, decrease the leakage out to the sea. And the wetlands, they get easily filled with nitrogen and phosphorus after a while, and a lot of reed and so grows there. So we test this with the production wetlands, that we can actually harvest reed or other wetland plants from the wetlands to get out nutrients, and also to get a biomass for the biogas production. And in a longer run, we also want to make high-value products out of this. And we have been looking at what kind of high-value products that we can get out of the wetlands plants that we're trying to do. I think if you have any questions on this, you're welcome. There are like 3 pages.
What is the biogas used for at the moment? And I mean, to what volumes are you possible to use the biogas for?
Now it's during the project time. We want to use it to heat, because it's just by the municipal wastewater treatment plant. So it's going to be used for those processes. And at the moment, we're only measuring it. So I don't know. But the potential in Trelleborg, if we only look at how much algae more or less we collect today for beach recreation, it's about 100,000 liters of diesel equivalent. So, but the Royal Institute of Technology have checked like how much algae do we actually have during a season and how much energy does that contain, and that contains about 2.8 million liters of diesel. Now it would be impossible to collect all of this algae for different reasons, but maybe we could collect like 10 or somewhere between 10 and 30% of that.
Are you testing other materials so that if you're mixing algae with slum or manure or something else, that would it be more effective?
Yeah, we're testing mixtures also. We've tested with the sugar beets and what's it called, halm, straw. Yeah. We haven't done it in like a controlled environment, like in testing. We're doing it large scale, so it's kind of difficult to say because the production goes up and down for different reasons. So I don't have exact measures on that.
Have you got any comment from a farmer using this? Are they happy with the bioavailability of the nutrients in the after the digestion?
I haven't actually heard their comments from it. We have farmers that takes it, but I haven't followed up on how it is compared to other materials. No.
Okay, thank you.
But we have there is a cadmium content in algae that is sometimes a problem, like with a lot of materials. When we want to recycle the phosphorus, algae also has that. So we only take in the algae when it has a cadmium content below 1 milligram per kilo dry weight. So it goes up and down with the season.
Any more questions, anyone? Okay, if so, thank you very much. We will move on to the next room.
Should we start? Yes. Yeah. Hello, my name is Dennis Wiström, and I'm working for Westwick Manipulation. And I'm going to present Gamleby Bay and Eutrophication as a resource. And the project goes out we're going to pump up the water and irrigate the land fields. So it's started with we do some measuring about oxygen, and it looks like this. We have a surface up here and the bottom down there, and it's about 15 meters deep. It's about 15 meters deep, and we have oxygen down to 3 meters. So the first thing we did was to take up about 100 liter from 12 meters deep and drive it up to Uppsala and SLU and this greenhouse to just check out what happened with the crops when we irrigated with the Baltic Sea water. So we make 3 different treat. One with the tap water, one with 50% tap water and 50% of this Baltic Sea water, and just one with 100% Baltic Sea water. And we take away all other effects and just this fertilizer from the nitrogen we have in the bay. And the concentration of the water was 2 milligram phosphorus per liter and 50 milligram nitrogen per liter. So it's quite much. And the results was that the biomass in this treat just get this water nearly double. So we can see we have a positive response at the crop. So this was the first thing, and the next thing we did was to try to do this in the fields. And in this summer we pump up the water and have this experiment there we have barley, lay, beans and wheat. And we can see the harvest increased about 20% in the fields. And for 10 euro, we take up 8.7 kilo nitrogen and 1 kilo phosphorus, and we increased the harvest. And the pump is about 12 meters under the surface and 4 meters from the bottom. So, any questions? Yes?
What about heavy metals?
Yeah, we take a sample about 300 heavy metals, and we don't get response of any. So this is clearly, and also this läkemedelsrester. Pharmacy. Ah. So it should take about 7 years if we take about 100 millimeters to 100 hectares to clean this bay up. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In the greenhouse, we try to give about 200 millimeters, and we don't get any high salt concentrated. It's about 4 promille in the water, so it's quite low. And when we get it out in the fields, we get about 600 precipitations, and we go into irrigate about 100. So it's going to leach out, but we go into measure it if we can see something in the future. Yeah, Emil?
For a certain bay area, let's say 1 square kilometer,
Yeah.
how much area of land could that correspond to if you add your 100 millimeter per year?
Yes, good questions. It depends on how much you irrigated, and this one is 50 hectare, and it's about 2,000 million liter or square meters. Yeah. So we need about 125,000 cubic meter 1 year to irrigate 100 millimeters.
Okay. Mm.
For 100 hectares, we need. Should I write here? Yes.
Okay. Mm. Thank you.
Yep.
I have just a curious question. I'm not so good with this Swedish type of inlet systems. For me, usually close to the coast is an area where you do a lot of drainage, where you actually want to get rid of the water. And now you irrigate with 100 millimeters. With if we assume 600 millimeters rainfall, it's 1/6 of the annual rainfall.
Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah. The problem is the crop need about 400 millimeters from March to August, and this rain only 200. So we have 200 left. So they go in to take the water from the groundwater, and now we put it in 100. So we still can give it 100 till. So we for the crop we should irrigate 200. So the water comes when we know how the crop in the winter. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, would this be combined with also a reduction in traditional fertilizer application, so that by adding this nutrient-rich water, there's not an additional kind of return and runoff back into the fjord?
Yes. I didn't hear your whole question because I write here. This was in this volume here, 125,000 cubic meter. We take up about 1.9 tons nitrogen and 250 kilos of nitrogen. And you.
I can repeat if you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have waited.
Yeah.
Would you apply this nutrient-rich water application at the same time that you also reduce the traditional fertilizer application?
Yeah.
And how does the kind of that interaction affect the runoff of nutrients back into this eutrophied fjord?
Yeah. Yeah. The key is when we have this crop, don't going. If we can get a higher harvest, the crop take up more and is leach. So if we can support the crop to take up more, if the crop can take up about 105% of the fertilizer we put on, we get least leaching. But the big leaching is in the autumn and in the winter. It's not in the summer. Yeah, thank you. I have some paper, if you want.
You can also find it on our website.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Heikki Pitkänen. He is Jouni Lehtoranta. We are from Finnish Environment Institute, SYKE, Marine Research Center, and we'll tell you shortly about the project called PROPEN, which official name was Controlling Benthic Release of Phosphorus in Different Baltic Sea Scales, which is a sister project for Västervik brand's box project, and there was a small program but with 2 projects, and we had 9 participating institutes from Nordic countries, and the main issue, of course, was to test this so-called pumping oxygenation, which is just the same system that Västervik brand used, although we used the machines of Water Eco Ltd. It's a Finnish company. And now Jouni will tell you about the results.
What you can clearly see here is that we had 2 different basins. One in Finnish side called Sandefjärden, and here in Swedish side Lennestasundet. And they both suffer from anoxia, but the anoxia is formed differently. Here anoxia is caused by a thermocline during summertime, and here by a halocline. And here anoxia can last several years, whereas here it is only a few months during summertime. All right, here the pumping capacity was about 600,000 cubic meters per day, and it was done by 6 pumps, Mixos pumps, and here was only 1 pump was used, and power need of 1 pump is about 2.5 kilowatts. And then something about the results. Here we have the concentrations of oxygen, phosphate and ammonium, and what you can see again clearly is these reference years from 2006 to 2008, and these are the pumped years. And what happened was that we had anoxia also during the pumped years in Sandefjärden. And also we had accumulation of phosphate during pumped years, similarly as reference years. And for ammonium, actually there was an increase in accumulation of ammonium to deep water layers. But here in Lennestasundet, we had a reference basin, which was an adjacent basin for this pumped basin here. And here what you can see is the halocline and concentration of high concentration of hydrogen disulfide in deep water layers, and of course no oxygen. And that situation can be seen also for phosphate. Red color means really high concentrations of phosphate. And here in the pumped basin, you can see that also there we had a high concentrations of hydrogen disulfide and no oxygen. And then we pumped very short period in late December 2009, and the situation improved quite drastically. And also we had to stop the pumping, and we started again during 2010 in midsummer and pumped 3 weeks, and after that the whole basin was oxidized quite well by this pumping. And that, even though we stopped the pumping, the basin remained oxidized. And also the concentrations of phosphate decreased quite drastically. So one thing here is that actually what we did when we pumped this surface water downwards, we decreased the density in this pumped basin, but then there came more dense water which contained oxygen, and actually that oxidized this pumped basin here. So if we calculate the costs for this removed phosphate, we calculated that or estimated that about 140 kilos of phosphorus was removed, and when we calculate the pumping costs, the cost of 1 kilo removed is about 46 euros per kilo. And then something about known risks. We know now that if we pump, let's say, this warm surface water through this thermocline to deep water layers, we can increase the temperature there, and that way increase the mineralization and actually increase the accumulation of, for example, ammonium in the deep water layers, even in higher amounts compared to previous years. And then something about these potential risks. If we, let's say, manipulate this hydrodynamics of these kind of basins, we of course change these nutrient ratios in these basins, or may change the nutrient ratios, and that may affect, for example, algal community or primary production in the system, which are really difficult to predict, for example. And how to proceed? We have now a situation where we have now succeeded, and then where we have not succeeded, and that actually is quite good situation if we are thinking of research, because now we should be able to say what makes this difference and why we did not succeed here in Sandefjärden. So more perhaps these kind of pilot studies are needed, and also what I would like to say is that we need also we have to study also other elements than only phosphorus and oxygen. We have to also look at the manganese and iron and also sulfur and nitrogen species, which are all redox sensitive substances. Okay, thank you.
Okay. In the Sandefjärd, so there was continuous release of phosphate during the mixing period?
No.
No.
Actually, the release of phosphorus started immediately when anoxia emerged. So actually there is a little effect. What we can see in this pumping is that it postponed a little bit this emerge of anoxia. But when we calculated the pool of phosphorus, what is found in the deep water layers before the autumn mixing, the pool was for similar size as during the reference years.
So it postponed the...
Only a little bit. Only a little bit.
I see. Thank you.
So what you suggest is that this could be implemented in places where you can have a halocline that you could actually break. That is your main conclusion.
Yeah, as you know, there is only now one pumped area. So, yeah, you are right, right about that. So, what we are thinking of is that we should now somehow make a study to look at these kind of or search for these kind of areas where this pumping could be used. and it seems to be so that this presence of halocline for this pumping is better than the presence of thermocline.
To add that, maybe it's good to add that we didn't break the halocline. Of course, it's then a bit weak, but we didn't break it, so it was still there also after the basin was oxygenated. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Yes. So I am Siv Johansson from this EviEM, Mr. EviEM, and it stands for the Mr. Council for Evidence-Based Environmental Management. And it's Mr. finances, and we are a project of 6 years. And the aim of this is that we would like to, we shall provide managers or decision makers with scientific base for further recommendation, which means that we don't do any recommendation or tell what to do, but we provide the base for recommendation. And we do that by conducting systematic reviews. And first, before I go into the result, I will say some words about what is a systematic review. We can say that number one is that often very well-defined questions. And we are not deciding or suggesting any questions, but we ask decision makers, we ask NGOs. So far we have had 4 meetings with NGOs and asked them what do they want to know, where is the knowledge gaps. And because this takes some time to do, we are not asking them what they want to do the next month, or what they want to know the next month. But we ask them to look at the Swedish environmental goals, objectives, and say, if you look at them, what do we need for knowledge to sort of improve or come closer to them? And after that, we looked if it's possible to do, and etc. And we do a very, very rigorous planning of the systematic review. And for that, we have put together a group of scientists, often with a Sweden scientist as a chair, because he knows the Swedish environmental objectives and the Swedish environmental system, etc. And then scientists from different countries. So they do the planning, but with input from a small stakeholder, especially interested in that or other issues. They will be some kind of reference group for us during the whole program, during the whole process. And then that starts the scientific group to work. And then you can look up here and you see what they do. First they look, what kind of literature do we find? And in this case, for this question, can reduction of zooplankton feeding fish improve water quality? They found over 14,000 articles. First they were assessed by title, and that's not so difficult and goes quite quick. But then abstract, and then they have 500 articles that they have to read and see are they relevant or not. 235 of those seem to be relevant. And then they start to look at the quality. And by quality, I mean they look at is the study design? Do they have a before and after study? What are they comparing? Do the statistics well done, etc. So they have a number of criteria that they should fulfill to go further down. And it's also important to say that they also have to really show why not this article should be included. So everything is very transparent. And then at this case, they have data from 125 lakes. It was a little bit more articles, but there were kind of a few lakes with several articles. That they did data extractions, and they start to analyze and do this meta-analysis. And I have one example here. The intervention they looked at, they were either reduction of planktivorous fish or stocking of predator fish, or both intervention at the same time. And the outcome that they were looking for was SYKE depth, the transparency of the water, or chlorophyll. And this is one example. You can see the SYKE depths before and after, and they, in this case, lakes with both interventions. If there had been no difference, everything should be in this line here. And these are the lakes, and you can see there's quite a lot of variation. And when you do this kind of meta-analyze, let me see that the big variation has less important than this kind of very small variation. The result in the end shows here that it's statistically significant from the 0, and it shows that the SYKE depth increased about 0.5 meter. And then you have to ask yourself, is 0.5 meter something to talk about? If we talk about the Baltic, I would say, no. But are we talking about small lakes? 0.5 meter can be quite a lot. It depends on how shallow and deep they are, etc. And this, of course, is a part of the analysis too, to say that, okay, and you have several of these kinds of analyses, meta-analyses, and then you put them together and write them. What factors are important here? And do you have to do this many times, or how long can it last before you have to do the same stockings and fishing again, etc.? And that will be published in a report. And I can say that we publish both the planning document and the report in a peer-reviewed open access journal called Environmental Evidence. And we also put them in our website. But because these are not so easy to read, you can imagine a lot of these kind of diagrams, etc. So we also write a summary, a Swedish, 10, 15 pages something, and a fact sheet, both in Swedish and English, that also on our website. This one will be published in a month or about that. And when we publish this, we also have a kind of we will of course reach those who have originally asked the question. But not only these, but also in the reference group you have talked about. So people who are invited from the beginning will also be, firstly they are asked on comments before these are ready, this report is ready. And they will also be when we present everything. We have the first report ready now, and I think it's in 2 weeks. I will go to further north in Sweden because the first report is about reindeers. So we present it where it's relevant. Just one more thing here. Even if I would say that the most important thing is to provide this scientific base for recommendation and decisions, etc. When we're doing this analysis, we also notice what kind of research that are missing or research gaps. How can we improve it? So it's another part of doing this will also be that we define the gaps, which means that we are giving this information back to the research councils, of course, but also put them, and we will put them in some way in our web to look to researchers to look at. Yeah, have I missed something now? Please ask if there are any questions. We don't do just water and improvement for marine. We do this kind of systematic reviews in. I mean, it depends on the subject that the stakeholders want to know more about. No? Questions? Yeah. Did I say that I will put this out? No? This is something like that will be put out beside my roll-up. Yes. First there. Emil. Yeah. Emil.
Can I speak without?
Yeah, I'll repeat it.
Okay. Do you have any to tell us about obvious missing knowledge regarding this fishing study?
He asked if I could tell about the missing research for this study. Yeah, one thing that we really tried to get was actually to get to include the few studies from marine areas, but that they were so there were not very many, and they pointed in so many different directions, you couldn't really compare the results. So it's, that is one thing. Yes? Yeah. She asked how many ongoing reviews we have. At the moment we have 6. The first one will sort of end in a few weeks, and then this one will be the next ready one. And then we will start 3 new this spring. As I said, they are in very many different subjects. I think that in the autumn, early autumn, we will probably finish the one that is about how much nitrogen and phosphorus wetlands can, that will be taken care of wetlands. I think that is ready. And we will start one about fish recruitment in shallow areas and how it's affected by anthropogenic pressures. Now it's 1 minute left. There is one question. Yes?
Sometimes I think researchers are criticized because they don't give very actionable advice, and it's difficult to actually take it by a practitioner and do something with the information. Is that something that comes across in the reviews you're doing, or are you finding actionable?
About actionable results and how it's a little bit how you present the results, aren't it?
Or can you take the information and say, okay, I have my own link and I'm going to do this?
Yeah, okay. It's about if it's possible to take the results and really do something, to use it in environmental management, I would say. Firstly, I would say it depends a little bit on the question. In this case, I would say that it's not possible to say just like that. But it's possible to see, okay, my lake fulfilled criteria A, B, and C, so it should be a good idea to test it here. So it's close to. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yep, it works. Yes, hello everyone. We are the ones with the poster about mussel farms, and I'm representing here not only Kalmar municipality but also the Kalmar Sound Commission, which is a cooperation between 7 municipalities, and the seed money project Baltic Blue Growth that we have been working and planning for a year now, and just sent in an application for the Baltic Sea region program. Anyway, the idea to grow mussels in the Baltic Sea is not new, and it has been tried before in quite large scale. For example, with the project financed by Baltic Sea 2020, we had a quite big farm right in the Kalmar Sound. It was unfortunately not a success, because even though the mussels grew fine and they were not containing so much toxins that we had feared, these farms were very exposed to drift ice. So in the spring, when the ice broke up, they also ripped apart the farms. So this is one thing that we have learned, that in order to do this again, we really need some technology development. And in this new project, we are going to sink down the farms to 3 to 5 meters below surface in order to avoid ice and also the worst wave exposure. So we see mussel farms as 2 good things. It could be regarded as an environmental measure to get up what's already there in the Baltic Sea, and perhaps also as a measure that could... is it better if I keep it like this? Or no, I should keep it close? Yeah. In the future, we hope that these kind of measures could be regarded as environmental measure in the Water Framework Directive. And we also hope that it could be possible to make a viable business out of this, so that the coastal population could find new jobs, and we could increase aquaculture in the Baltic Sea with large-scale mussel farms. It's different, you know. It's difficult when you have had this presentation so many times before to have, okay, what did I say and what did I say in the other room? But anyway, so the general idea is that these mussels should be treated as a resource. and they should go into the industry of animal fodder. So in the project we have 4 cases that we will study, and the Swedish case is in the Kalmar Sound, where we will have a large-scale mussel farm, either in the Sound or at the east side of Öland in this new large windmill park, Kårehamn. We will harvest the mussels, and the Kalmar Lantmän that we have a cooperation with will take it into their fodder industry, and they will mix it with other ingredients, test nutrients and toxins and other stuff, and then they will pass it on to Guldfågeln, which is a big chicken industry on Öland. And so we'll feed it to the chickens, and we will make risk assessment and a lot of experiments, how the chicken grow and so on. And in the future, Kalmar Lantmän says that if they can see a future potential of 2,000 tons of ready fodder a year, which will correspond to annual harvest of mussels of 4,000 tons per year, which is quite a lot compared to what we have today. But anyway, then they would be interested to actually make an investment in some new pilot plant or factory that could separate mussel shells from mussel meat. And Guldfågel has already claimed that they are very interested in buying this because they have some special product called Väntlinge kyckling that they sell as they are soy-free, and they are produced only by local ingredients and only served to the local restaurants for a high price. So this could be a way for them to have a profiled product that they can actually get extra pay for. And some of the nutrients in this grand blue future, where we can actually recirculate the nutrients from the already eutrophicated Kalmar Sound, some of the nutrients will unfortunately flow back, as it always does from agriculture and livestock industry. But we think this will be still very beneficial for the Baltic Sea, because we will take up more than we put back, and we can also decrease perhaps some of the import of feed ingredients from Central America in the form of soy protein. So in perspective, how much nutrients could you actually take up by having large-scale mussel farms? Submariner project, they made an estimate of this, and now it's such a blurry picture, so I can't even see the numbers, but something around 5,000 tons of, 500 tons of nitrogen and 8 tons of phosphorus that you could harvest from 700 hectares of mussel farms in Sweden. They think is realistic potential. And if we would take up all the remaining nutrients that we have to take according to the Baltic Sea Action Plan, we would need to have in the Baltic Sea 4,300 hectares of mussel farms harvested every year. But this is perhaps not so realistic. But still, it's an interesting thought. We did in the previous project marine spatial planning in the Kalmar County. And we had a GIS analysis where we put in all the parameters that we know about, that we could have available from these environmental databases and interest conflicts and protected areas and everything. And here we can see on this picture areas where it would, we think, be very good to put in big-scale mussel farms, and also less colored areas where the potential is perhaps not so good. I brought some handouts where you can see the numbers for nutrient removal potential and this unit abatement cost. But the unit abatement cost, it will be largely depending on geography, as I said, marine spatial planning, where you put these farms, and also a question of technology, because in order to get this cheap, you need to do it in a very large scale and industrial way. You need to have a good harvester machine, for example. And it's also very critical if you can sell the mussels as a product and what price you can get out from the end product. So all these factors will affect, but what we can see from previous projects is that there is a wide span of costs, calculations that has been made. And in the Kalmar Sound, when we did it ourselves, we got to a number that was comparable to actually the cost for increasing the sewage treatment plants even more and make it better. About the environmental implications and risks, one of the main criticisms to mussel farms is that they shit. They have this feces falling down on the bottom, and that could create anoxic conditions that could actually cause a release of phosphorus. And in the last session, we also got this tricky question about the nutrients being more bioavailable when they have passed the mussel, so that can actually increase also problems of eutrophication by turning nutrients from one not so available form to another available form. This is something that we have. It has been studied in earlier projects, for example, the Baltic Eco Mussel project. So in this handout, I also have their scientific results. But we will study it more, and we will also make a good risk assessment for what happens when you put these mussels in fodder. So, do we have questions?
How long does it take before it's optimal to harvest the mussels?
It depends on where you are in the Baltic Sea. In the 4 cases that I mentioned that we have in the project, the Danish case, they will harvest every year. And in Kalmar, we will try to harvest every year, but if it doesn't work, we will harvest every second year. In Åland, they will go for a harvest every second year. And in Germany, I think they will also harvest every year.